Conor Garland to the Minnesota Wild? Apparently, we're starting to hear rumblings about this being a possible reality. Canucks could very well trade Garland to the Minnesota Wild, and according to Rick Dhaliwal, the Minnesota Wild could be interested in Conor Garland, and actually he's in fact says that he wouldn't be surprised if they were interested in Conor Garland. But let's be real. This is less about a good fit and more about a high-stakes, nearly impossible negotiation. Today, we're cutting through the noise to discuss why this deal could be difficult for both sides. I'm going to hit the intro, and then we're going to talk about it. What's up, Canuck fans? Welcome to The Line Change, a Vancouver Canucks podcast, which is a presentation of DraftKings Sportsbook, as well as a proud member of the Hockey Podcast Network. Now, the truth is, the Canucks are not desperate to move Conor Garland, and the Wild are looking for a completely different player. So for this trade to happen, we need to answer three critical questions. Number one, what is the Canucks' blown-away price for Conor Garland, especially with his recent slump? Like, what are the Canucks looking to get out of a Conor Garland trade? And what is his asking price when it comes to the team? Number two, what is the Wild's real priority? And does Garland, who is a winger, fit into a team that is already loaded on wingers and a team that really needs help up the middle after the Quinn Hughes trade, which sent Marco Rossi, who is out at one point their first line center, to the Vancouver Canucks? Number three, does the Wild even have the assets to meet Vancouver's asking price when it comes to a trade for Conor Garland? The narrative is crucial here. Canucks management has made it clear they will not move Garland unless they are absolutely blown away by the offer. He's a valuable player, a proven top-9 threat, and they have the cap space to keep him. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is his play. Garland hasn't scored a goal since December, and while the rumors of a trade are swirling, his body language suggests something maybe deeper. Remember when the Canucks traded Quinn Hughes? No, Canuck fans probably haven't forgotten that and probably will never forget that trade. Some believe that trade checked out Garland. Now, I don't know if you guys watched the game the other night, but we also talked about it on our post-game show. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead and check that out. But my buddy Gerald mentioned, and some other people have mentioned, Garland looks a little checked out as of late. He's missing the chemistry and the emotional link of his former teammate, and his recent slump perhaps reflects that. And we also know once the Quinn Hughes trade went through that, Garland obviously was affected by it, as were probably most of his teammates. But out of all of his teammates, I do feel as though Garland was affected the most by the Quinn Hughes trade. Management sees a high-energy player, so they are selling the potential, not the slump. Their target is probably a first-round pick if they can get it, or most likely a second-round pick and a top-tier prospect for Conor Garland. Just think about it. Kiefer Sherwood fetched you 2 second-round picks and an AHL player. Garland can probably fetch you more. That's a high price for a player who, on a cup contender, is likely slotted as a competitive high-end third-line winger, not a top 6 driver like he is currently on the Canucks. Now we look at the other side of the ice. What does the Minnesota Wild need right now? They are loaded on the wings. They have their young stars and veteran presence. What they desperately need is help up the middle, a first-line center, to elevate their elite wingers. Garland, a winger, simply does not solve their main problem. Bringing in Garland with his nearly $5 million cap hit, which will soon be $6 million. Remember, Conor Garland's new extension that he signed this past offseason officially kicks in on July 1st, which is 6 times 6, so 6 years for $6 million. It would mean Minnesota is trading high-value assets, both picks and prospects, for a player who is a luxury, not a necessity. It's a move that distracts from their actual core mission of finding that true number one center. The Wild's management would have to be very convinced that Garland's value outweighs their desperate need down the middle. We actually have an article that kind of talks about this trade or the potential for this trade. So let's go. Business between the Vancouver Canucks and Minnesota Wild could be in a better place after the two struck the biggest deal of the season in December. With that in mind, could the two sides come together on another deal in the same season? On Thursday's episode of Donnie and Dolly, Rick Dhaliwal mentioned that he wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota Wild liked Conor Garland. Conor Garland's stats, not great since Quinn Hughes, his good friend, left, but teams are still calling on Conor Garland. The Canucks don't really want to move him, like we mentioned, folks, but they are listening. Would not be surprised if the Minnesota Wild like Garland. The only problem with that is they might have issues absorbing Garland's new contract. It would cost a lot. Canucks are not doing a Garland trade unless it's an offer you can't refuse, as we mentioned. While this isn't exactly a full-fledged report, it did get us thinking, would Garland be a fit for the Minnesota Wild, and what might a trade end up looking like? Looking into the Wild's depth chart, the right side of their forward group is fairly accounted for, with Matt Zuccarello, Matt Boldy, and Vladimir Tarasenko as their top 9 wingers. Up front, Minnesota currently have a full bill of health. Here's how the Wild's forward group looks right now. You have Kirill Kaprizov on the left wing, centered by Ryan Hartman, and then Matt Zuccarello on the right wing as their first line. You have Johansson as the left winger on the second line, Eriksson Ek up the middle, and then, of course, you have Matt Boldy on the right side as your second line. Third line, you have Foligno, Yurov, and Tarasenko, and then you have Trenin, Sturm, and Hiro Stroza, apologies if I mispronounced that, as your fourth line. The clear glaring need for Minnesota is down the middle, specifically a top-line center to play between Zuccarello and Kirill Kaprizov. And those are rare to find and expensive to acquire. Trust me, we know. And does it really make sense for the Wild to part with top assets that they would need to go out and acquire that top-line center for another right winger who they don't even have room for in their lineup? Remember how difficult it was for the Canucks to acquire a second-line center in the offseason? It would probably be even harder to acquire a first-line center, and we all know that. But even if they wanted to, it begs the question, what top assets do the Wild even have anymore? Back in the December blockbuster, the Wild unloaded the clip on their most valuable assets, sending Zeev Buium, whom they originally did not want to move, Marco Rossi, Liam Ogren, and a 2026 first-round pick in exchange for Quinn Hughes. Those are 4 premium assets, a star potential rookie defenseman, their top-line center at the time, a former first-round pick, and a future first-round pick. So with 4 of their top trade chips no longer in their arsenal, what other assets do the Wild have left in their system that the Canucks could possibly be interested in? Let's take a look at the prospects. The cupboards are still fairly intact in terms of the Wild's forward prospects. Riley Haight, apologies again if I mispronounced that, Hunter Haight are former second-round picks who are playing in the American League this season, with the latter appearing in 5 NHL games this season. Charlie Stramel and Ryder Ritchie are having scoring success in the NCAA this season. Stramel is tied for 11th in NCAA scoring with 13 goals and 30 points, and in Ritchie's first NCAA season, he has 4 goals and 13 points in 25 games with Boston University. Recent 4th-round pick Adam Benak is having a strong OHL campaign with 21 goals and 53 points, with 2026 top prospect and Abbotsford Canucks head coach Manny Malhotra's son, Caleb Malhotra, and the Brantford Bulldogs. One piece the Wild have reportedly been dangling as a potential trade chip for a significant asset is 23-year-old netminder Jesper Wallstedt. However, goaltending just isn't a position the Canucks would target given their current organizational depth and competitive timeline. And then I will attach a link to this article in the description down below if you guys want to read it. They have an article that talks about which young players might the Canucks target in a trade with the Wild. This is, of course, back from November. But let's take a look at picks. The Wild are without their first or second round picks in 2026, but hold their selections in rounds 3 through 7, including an additional 5th round pick, which previously belonged to the San Jose Sharks. In 2027, Minnesota still has its first, but traded its second round pick in the David Jiricek trade with the Columbus Blue Jackets last season. They retain all their picks through rounds 3 to 7 in 2027 as well. Would it be nice to reunite Conor Garland with Quinn Hughes in Minnesota? Probably, but quite honestly, it doesn't appear to be a fit. The Wild currently don't have room for Garland to play his preferred position in the top 9, and even if they did, would the Wild be willing to offer the Canucks something they couldn't refuse in order to pry a Garland off their hands? That offer likely includes their 2027 first-round pick and another B-level asset like a Charlie Stramel. It's an interesting question to ponder, but Garland doesn't seem like a player the Wild would ever get serious about targeting at this juncture. So with that being said, but let's play devil's advocate here. If a deal happens or were to happen, it has to be, once again, at the Canucks' price. And it has to make sense for the Wild despite their priority being a center. So playing devil's advocate and, doing this what-if scenario, if a deal were to happen, here are 2 proposals that came close to, quote-unquote, blowing away the Canucks. Canucks get a conditional 2027 first-round pick. The condition being it becomes a second-round pick if the Wild miss the playoffs. And a quality defensive prospect. The Wild get Conor Garland. This is the Wild putting the most on the table, a risky first-round pick in 2027 that protects their future if they flounder. This is likely the only price Vancouver would probably even consider. Here's the second one. Canucks get a second-round pick in 2020, or get a second-round pick, or no, that's not it. This would probably have to be a 2028 second-round pick and a high-end, near-ready forward prospect. Canucks probably would not do this. And then, of course, the Wild would get Conor Garland. This would probably meet the Canucks' minimum ask. But at the same time, I do not see the Canucks doing this one because, the Wild do not have their second-round pick in 2027. At least I believe. Yeah. So here's the verdict. This trade is a massive long shot. The Canucks want a king's ransom, and the Wild need a center, not another winger. But in the NHL, all it takes is one GM to quote-unquote get blown away. Do you think the Wild can even afford to pay a first? Or would the Wild be willing to trade their 2027 first-round pick to try and get Garland? Do you think that would maybe entice the Canucks to actually pull the trigger on a Garland trade and trade him to the Wild? And if the Canucks did trade him, what does that say about the team? Now, if the Canucks do trade Garland, and this is just my personal opinion, I don't think it happens until the draft. And I'm not talking about, trading Garland to the Wild. I'm just speaking in, trading Garland as a whole. I don't think it happens. And if they're going to pull the trigger on it, they're going to do it at the draft. Gerald and I touched on it during our post-game show last night, and a lot of people have been talking about the Ruck twins. Could the Canucks use Garland as a trade chip to get another second-round pick and maybe trade up in the draft to try and draft both twins? Have history repeat itself and have them trade another set of twins or have them word vomit right there. Have them draft to another set of twins. If they did trade Garland for a second-round pick, they would have their own. They would have the Sharks' second-round pick in 2026, and then the second-round pick they would get for Garland. So that would be 3 second-round picks. And it's being said that the Ruck twins will likely be drafted early, either late first round or early second round. So if the Canucks can stockpile on second-round picks, there's potential for them to draft the Ruck twins. What do you guys think? Should the Canucks use Garland as a trade chip on the draft floor before his new contract kicks in? I'd like to thank my main and primary sponsor, none other than DraftKings Sportsbook, which is an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Never experienced the jaw-dropping moments that make hockey? hockey? Well, you can experience them all with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Missouri listeners, listen up. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in the Show Me State. New customers, this one's for you. Bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN, that's code THPN, to turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Pass-through per wager may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. This is a limited time offer. Copyright NHL 2025. All rights reserved. Sponsor, none other than Gassy Jack Art, maker of this amazing artwork you see right here in front of you. And you guys can check them out yourselves at gassyjackart.com. All right, well, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know, once again, what you guys think. Obviously, we kind of debunked, I guess you could say, this Garland to Wild trade rumor and speculation. Like I mentioned, I do think as though if the Canucks are going to pull the trigger on a Conor Garland trade, that it'll get done on draft day, on the draft floor. And could it potentially, or could the Canucks even be considering this idea of using Garland as a trade chip to acquire the Ruck twins? That is, if the Canucks are even interested in them. I mean, I think they'd be crazy if they weren't interested in the Ruck twins, considering how they've been lighting it up. But if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button. And also, if you want to stay up to date on all your Vancouver Canucks content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single video. Also, a reminder, check out our official merchandise store. We are currently selling our 1-year anniversary collection, which is now available. And as you guys saw from the hoodie I was wearing, I was rocking that black skate logo hoodie. Go ahead, check it out, thelinechangepodcast.threadless.com. We do have a sale going on, so go ahead and check that out as well. Also, if you want to have more conversations and discussions like the one we just had, join our official Discord. There's a link to it in the description down below. It is completely free to join. You can find and interact with us on social media. We're everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, even Blue Sky. Feel free to give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. Speaking of platforms, if you prefer an audio version of this podcast, you can find us on both Spotify and Apple Podcast. On Spotify, feel free to give us a follow, as well as rate and review us on either platform. It is, of course, greatly appreciated and really helps out the podcast. Something else that really helps out the podcast, if you have a favorite episode that you absolutely want to listen to over and over again, you can download your favorite episode on either platform. That too also really helps out the podcast. And of course, we are greatly appreciative if you do so as well. So once again, drop your comments down below with your best trade proposal. If you do maybe like the idea of Conor Garland going to the Wild, or even just a Conor Garland trade in general, doesn't have to be the Minnesota Wild. Drop your comments down below with your best Conor Garland trade proposal. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next line change. Also, actually, before I go real quick, be sure to check out the Hockey Podcast Network for your favorite podcast covering your favorite team at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com, the home of hockey podcasts, where it's every team, everywhere. Now, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next line change.